Snakes Turn Left, a spiritual road trip. Chapter 1. Turn left. So I turn left at the end of my tiny suburban street. This little white car has taken that turn at least 1,000 times in the last 2 years. This time it felt new, different. I'm leaving. A full tank, $2,000 in the bank, phone completely charged, and a very half-baked plan of where I'm heading. I've been working on this plan for about 2 weeks now, and all I really know is I'm travelling north, up the east coast of Australia. About 3/4 of the way up the coast is where I reckon I might find myself. I'll figure it out when I get there, I guess. Right now, in 2022, at the age of 22, I find myself in the very familiar streets of my suburb. I'm switching off the radio and driving towards 2 teenage boys on BMX bikes. They ride across the road in that slow, snaky way that lets you know that they're not travelling anywhere at all. Not to the park, not to the shops. They're just hanging out in their street. Their body language lets anyone passing through know that this is definitely their street. They probably aren't aware that they're doing it, but they stare at me with a smoothness that intensifies as I get closer. I pass them and check my mirror. One boy continues to look while the other one does a small trick. So as I turn left at the end of their street, I'm reminded that I no longer have a street of my own. I won't be returning to this suburb. If I do return, I'll definitely be someone that is just passing through. I don't know exactly where I'm going, but I definitely have an idea of why I'm going. I've recently learnt that truth-inspired statements said between drunken housemates can be far more damaging than failing to pay rent. When both of my housemates said I didn't have the guts to leave and chase my dreams, I knew I had to leave. Even if I just moved one suburb away, I knew I couldn't stay with people that thought so low of me. Anyways, I'd probably say hi if I saw them again. If I saw them circling their bikes around each other, I'd probably give them a quick toot and a wave. It scares me that I don't actually know if I'll catch my dreams or not. But what is scarier, and maybe even terrifying, is that my 2 closest friends will never ever know. When they finally got the idea that I was leaving the house, they told me I wasn't chasing anything. I was just running, they said. Running away from something. From myself, running away from them. Well, fuck them. I'm right here in my car, and soon I'll be somewhere else in my car. And then after that, I'll be somewhere else. Without them and their shit advice. I guess I should tell you that even though the drunken arguments were raging hot and deeply personal, they weren't enough to stop me sleeping with her. I slept with her drunk and I slept with her sober. Parts of me miss her already, but she can get fucked by the other housemate for all I care. I'm sure they've already done the deed. She was the second best sex I've ever had. The best was the only other person I've had sex with. My first. So anyways, as I drive down this new main road, I find myself smiling. I uselessly snake the car left and right, back and forward across the 2 lanes. This is my street, and this is my car. The next street I turn into will be mine, and the next, and the next. I find myself approaching the biggest challenge of my journey so far, the turn off to my parents' place. I've probably taken that turn at least 222,000 times in my life. Dad loves to tell us that at 6 in the morning he manoeuvred the car around these very corners like a demon, all the way to the hospital. It took him less than 5 minutes to get Mum there with all her pregnant screaming and hollering. At 5 they released her and we took 60 minutes to take the same journey home. I was the first son. With his second son, he took 30 minutes to get to the hospital and 30 minutes back, or so the story goes. I'd never lived anywhere else until a few years ago. I moved out and rented with some dickhead mates. Well, that's what my dad calls them anyway. Looks like he was right again. The corner is getting closer. If my hands just moved slightly to the right and I committed, I'd be just taking a drive over to Mum and Dad's place. A coffee would become, you should just stay the night. Dinner would become breakfast, and before I knew it, I'd be telling my grandnephews about the big sleepover I once had at my parents' place. I find myself sitting at Mum and Dad's table. My car just drove me here. Mum just placed the coffee down. You sure you don't want to finish your degree, she says. Yeah, not really. She places the honey jar on the table. You know you're welcome to stay here for as long as you want. Yeah, I know, Mum, thanks. After a long pause and a few sips of coffee, she continues her slow-release questions. So where are you going to go? I take a sip. I stare at the tablecloth. Not sure, Mum. Her face winces in pain, but she always manages to basically say the right thing. Well, if that's what you want, then you know that me and your father are always behind you. The degree Mum is speaking of is a creative writing degree. Dad reckons it's useless, Mum reckons it's what I want. The stuff they talk about in the course is pretty interesting, but some of it is just shit. In the final lecture that I attended, they spoke about not having shallow characters in your stories. Dad, he's a beekeeper that knows everything. That's it. End of story. I stand at the door of the A room, which is really the B room, and I say to him, I'm off, Dad. See you later, dickhead, he says. Oh, and he's very funny as well. Honey makes you funny. Well, that's what he always said to me and my brother. We are yet to find out if it's actually true. Anyways, he's a know-it-all with an old and cutting sense of humour. I guess in this case he sort of does know it all, because I was here yesterday saying goodbye. He knows where my mind is up to, he knows what I'm scared of, and he reckons he knows what's going to happen. Like a predictable worker bee, he thinks he knows what I'll do and where I'll go. But fuck him, the old queen that he is. I don't need him to get lost. I can do it all by myself. He throws me a full 1 litre glass bottle of honey from across the room. Its precious and laboured contents hangs in the air, surrounded by a glass cocoon. It slips through my hands and I catch it between my wrists and my chest. He gave me one for the road yesterday too. Fuck, he's an arsehole. Chapter 2. Stakes and Ladders. I find myself driving up the main highway. No shirt, the radio loud, my mind ticking over. I won't spend all of our time talking about my recent study, I promise. I've moved on from creative writing, but I'll mention it this one last time. They reckon so many stories fail because the main character has nothing or not enough at stake. A shitty job, coffee with mum, dickhead mates, a degree, a future job waiting tables, a future in apiculture or beekeeping. Really? It seems like there's nothing at stake. Well, that's what my lecturers would say. Well, fuck my lecturers. I can fuck it up all by myself. All they tell me about is failure and exactly what it looks like. Then they trot out some classics and tell us, this is what you'll never be. I've listened to 3 story writing videos on my phone on this trip already. They're all just as negative as each other. 5 flaws your characters have. Plot, what not to do. 12 reasons why your screenplay sucks. I don't have body image issues yet, but if I keep listening to this sort of shit, I'll definitely develop something. To be honest though, it feels like something's at stake. I'm just sitting in my car, driving down the highway. My bare chest is beating harder than it should. Fuck me too. There's no way my heart should beat. My heart will beat exactly as it will. I find myself at a petrol station filling up the car. Her name is Daisy. That's her name because she just looks like a daisy. Beautiful, strong, reliable. How can a car have shallow character exposition, I hear you say? Well, how about fuck you too? Just joking. You can wait here in the car while I go pay, but I completely understand if you're not here when I get back. This journey could be long and boring or short and useless. I can't make any promises. I snake the car across the highway, but honestly, I don't know where I'm going. I have no destination in mind. When I get there, it might be so insignificant that I miss it. Or I could be looking left as the biggest opportunity in my life flies by on the right. The destination could be so scary that I don't even want to stop. If my love interest is a big jobless 45-year-old woman who smokes and wears lime green sarongs, I'm just turning around. But I guess the worst thing would be that there's no destination at all. Just a long, snaking detour of sleepovers to get to coffee at Mum and Dad's. Last night was my first sleepover on the road. It wasn't the best sleep I've ever had, but far better than Daisy and I expected. Daisy is a special character. She deserves more words. White, modern, ageing, loyal, 2000 model Nissan. A few weeks ago, Dad made me a triangular wooden frame for her so I could sleep comfortably. It's sort of like a wedge-shaped box with foam in it. We cut it to just the right size to fit in the dip of the reclined passenger seat. He might be a bastard, but he's pretty good at making just about anything out of wood. He bastardizes everything. When Mum's childhood piano broke beyond repair, he conveniently waited until she had a girls' weekend with her dickhead mates, and then he used it to make her a bookcase. He's such a bastard. He convinced himself that it wasn't ironic that the only books he placed on there were her old piano books. Mum took out 3 books and set the whole thing alight in the middle of his beloved A-room. It nearly burnt the whole room down. There's still burn marks on the roof. Mum grabbed another 3 books from the main pile, and now she leaves them wherever she wants around the house. He's never dared to move them. No one knows if she's ever read them, but every 6 months or so, she does a clean-up and moves them to another spot. The coffee table, the kitchen bench, the TV cabinet. They were on top of the fridge when I left. I wonder if they'll be there when I get back. Growing up, everything around our house that wasn't plastic or electrical was fashioned in wood and looked suspiciously like a B-frame. Picture frames, the dish dryer on the sink, the bin lid. It comes as no surprise to me that Dad used my old childhood mattress to fill the wedge frame for Daisy. It's no use mentioning it to him that it's even slightly symbolic. He'd just say, "Waste not, want not." I did, however, notice that he used his stock standard B-frame wood. I must be special. But with Dad, you never really know. I've learnt not to argue with him, and I've learnt when it's not worth questioning. At the end of the day, it's a good frame, and it helps me sleep. So my dad's a bastard, my mum is timid and fiery, my car has character, and me? I'm an average young adult. My superpower is maybe honesty. So really, I'm a scared little boy that wants to do something with his life. A destination, a life-consuming hobby, love, or all of the above. I don't like being compared to my dad, especially by him. But I'd really like to find my beekeeping equivalent. I love writing. It is with great reliability that writing consumes my spare time. But at the end of the day, you've really got little or nothing to show for it. It is said that it is beekeeping that is far less romantic than writing. But when all is said and done, at least you have something to show for it. At least you can eat honey. You can't eat words. Fuck, even my internal dialogue sounds like my dad's. And the truth about my dad is, he's not that bad. He's a passionate and reliable guy. I guess that makes his opinions even worse. I've definitely inherited my honesty superpower from that old bastard. Whether he was trying to or not, he definitely taught me to see through bullshit. Always see the negative in every situation. He also taught me about navigation. I can hear his voice now. Heading to North Queensland is easy. The ocean is on your right, the mountains are on your left. You can't go wrong. If the ocean ends up on your left, you know you've fucked up. As I look to my left, all the mountains look the same. On my right, I just see pine trees. The Bruce Highway is the main highway up the east coast of Queensland. It's quite far back, so you can't see the ocean, but you can feel it there the whole way. That's probably something my mum would say. She's far more in touch with her feelings. Actually, she's not really in touch with her feelings. She's emotional. Dad would say emotional like it was a bad thing, but I never saw it that way. Truth be known, she's a doddery lady with the heart of a planet. For the right reason, she'll rip your chest off, cut your arms open, or set your beloved A-room on fire. But for any other reason, she'll shower you with indiscriminate love and praise. If Mum has a character flaw, which I guess she does, it's that she doesn't trust and therefore doesn't know the right reason for anything. She's sort of like the American military, armed to the teeth with emotion and not really sure who to kill. Anyways, I don't think she has a hobby like beekeeping. Just being doddery and intense is her thing. I guess she is reliably deep and passionate. She also manages to technically say the right thing when it's required. Me and my father are always behind you. Their polar opposite but equally annoying voices slowly fade to the back seat as I get lost in the view ahead of me. The radio plays and I have a plain vision. Uluru. It wasn't a mystical vision, it was pretty similar to the thousands of other visions that you get when you drive and listen to the radio. I take the next turn left and find myself driving west towards the heart of this country, Uluru. So I've outlined my parents' character flaws and the fact that my lecturers are wallies. But if I were to talk about my own flaws, I'd have to say I'm way too curious. I'm curious about history and I spend far too much time on my phone researching it. My lecturers, my parents, my dickhead mates, They all constantly remind me that I'm on my phone too much. But I don't think they understand. If I'm on my phone in your presence, it's not to escape you. It's probably to find out something useful for the both of us. If we're having a conversation on a park bench and I pull my phone out, I'm probably finding out the history of the park and what we could visit nearby. If we were at the beach, I'd probably be just narrowing down the history of shark attacks in this stretch of coastline and looking at the weather predictions for the next 6 hours. If I've just met you, I might be researching the history of your name. Anyways, I guess I've always been stuck somewhere between my parents' flaws. I'm an annoying and pragmatic know-it-all history buff, but I don't have the confidence to plan an attack for the next 24 hours. And what else about me? I've got brown hair, and I'm skinny, and I'm a pretty nice guy. That's me, the main character of my journey. Chapter 3. I find myself heading inland, west, and backtracking my last few steps. I'm not sure if it's for my benefit or yours. Anyways, I was driving up the highway and had a simple thought of Uluru. I took the next left towards the heart of the country. I don't really think that I'll drive all the way to Uluru, but I might. Directly in front of me is my very own green Uluru, a plain, hilly-like mountain. The grazing land stops 1/3 of the way up, and then the dark trees stretch right up and over the peak. At the next T intersection, I look left, I look right, and I smile. There is absolutely no one except a farmer on a red tractor slowly approaching from about 800 metres on my left. I consider waiting, but my wheels churn and I take off to the right. The land is flat, the road is straight. I feel the cows staring at me from both sides. This looks nowhere near as exciting as I imagined the mountains could be. I turn left at the next T intersection. The land slowly rises. I turn right. I turn left. There are now trees on both sides. Quite pretty, really. I exit another tree tunnel and see the road snaking across the paddocks in front of me. My car leans with travelling weight into every corner as I speed up. This is actually pretty fun. Approaching another blind corner, I see a driveway with a hand-painted sign. Caution, cars exiting. Immediately, I question myself. Is this really my street? I slow down as the thoughts come faster. I'm on a snaking road. What if I don't want to snake? I might want to go to the top of that mountain on my left. I might want to explore that creek on my right. Barbed wire runs parallel to my journey. On both sides, it flicks by at a much higher rate than the trees and mountains in the background. Daisy pulls over on the soft grass. I have no idea why I stopped or why I've got out. The engine makes that heated ticking noise as I navigate the spikes of the barbed wire fence. The top of this hilly mountain is probably not really my destination, but it might be. After a minute of walking up this steep paddock, I see a dry cow pad right in front of me. The thought pops into my mind with a childish excitement. Mushrooms. As I turn around, I smile and think to myself, what an underwhelming Uluru. The cows witness me hopping and skipping back over the 2 barbed wire fences that have Daisy fenced in. On the other side, the grass seems to be greener. It's even greener near the bushy creek line, and that's where I head. I stand in the shade of the creek. This cow pad looks fresher and it definitely has mushrooms on it. A cow stands on the other side of it just a few metres away. She brings her head up from the ground and grinds her jaw from side to side. She's enormous. Her eye contact convinces me she's talking. What are you doing here? She asks. Before I give a response to my own imagination, she continues. You don't even know if these mushrooms are poisonous. You probably need to make friends with hippies to find out if they're safe. You should probably make some friends. You shouldn't be so judgmental of farmers. If they weren't here, I wouldn't be here. And if I wasn't here, this potentially psychedelic mushroom wouldn't be here. She pulls more grass and stares at me before continuing the conversation. Your car is neither hippie nor farmer. Who are you? Is your car really called Daisy? She casually reaches for more grass, then lifts her head to the left. The farmer stands on the edge of the next creek. I can't really see his face, but he seems grumpy. On the air, I can hear him say, prior planning prevents piss-poor performance. After a few seconds of awkward staring, me and the cow look back at each other. She starts chewing again. This time she's not talking, she's just munching grass. I verbally thank Wendy for her time and walk back to the car. A few minutes of aimless driving, and the only words I can hear in my head are in my father's voice. Prior planning prevents piss-poor performance. It's something he used to say to me all the time. Me and my brother would sigh every time we'd hear the tone of his introduction. You know what they say? And then we'd just endure all 6 words like they were straight from the gospel. When I say he used to say it all the time, I don't really mean it in that romanticised, nostalgic way. I mean, he said it for as long as I've ever known him. He said it just before I left on this poorly planned trip, and he'll say it when I get home too. I find myself turning off the main highway. I can hear my dad's voice again. The ocean is on your right, the mountains are on your left, you can't go wrong. Chapter 3. Turn right. I find myself turning off the main highway. I can hear my dad's voice again. The ocean is on your right, the mountains are on your left, you can't go wrong. Skipping down the local roads, I chase a feeling towards the ocean. There's no turning back now. Well, technically, that's not quite correct. Skipping down local roads, I chase a feeling towards the ocean. There's no turning back now. Well, technically, that's not quite correct. There is something that will follow me on this journey. It is something that I will only see if I turn around. This dark force will chase me all the way up the coast and anywhere else I decide to go. This ominous yet painless energy is quite simply an option. The very plain option that follows me is the option of just turning back. It will follow me wherever and whenever I decide to lead it. If I chose to pull over right now and turn the wheels back home, my 2 ex-housemates would enjoy it immensely. They'd hunt me down just to politely ask if I had caught my dreams. Even if we did cross paths, there are some things that they wouldn't understand. I probably wouldn't even tell them. I've already caught some memories. They're only small, but they're mine. A talking cow named Wendy, a guy on a red tractor, a farmer by a creek, and my very own Uluru. They're small, but these memories are surely what dreams are made of. They will float behind me for some time to come. Another strange thing I have noticed, and that I'm sure is a gift, is that half of my memories have been left in a long string behind me. For some odd reason, I can tell you exactly where I was on the highway when I told my lecturers to get fucked. I remember the petrol station where I gave you the option to get out. I can't remember my dreams from the first night of sleep, but I can recall exactly where I parked the car. I know my exact thoughts when I turned left and drove into the hills. I don't think I'll forget these things anytime soon. Thinking of the six P's took me over a small bridge, past a dying tree, at the base of an oddly shaped mountain. I don't know the name of the bridge, the creek, the tree or the mountain, but I'm sure I'll forever remember that stretch as 3 P's. If I ever bring my kids back through here, I will tell them of my journey. I may or may not tell them of the wisdom of the 6 P's. I'm still test driving the concept for myself. It feels like I've left half my memories on the road and kept the other half in my heart. To unlock them, I'm sure I just have to drive through the same roads again. Maybe travel is my thing. I don't really know. Right now, my surroundings are pretty nondescript, but the thoughts I'm creating are very clear. The road ahead snakes from side to side, but the land is nowhere near as pretty as it was in the hills. The houses are spaced quite far apart, and the land between them doesn't look expensive. It's arranged into pockets of broken car bodies and shipping containers. Some houses look fairly nice, but they're all a different shade of broken. Dad's voice won't leave me alone. You know what they say. He basically uses the 6 P's in 2 ways. The first way is like a judgmental ninja. He just sits there and waits for someone to stuff up, and then he'll be there to just throw the 6 P's at them. Could be a small thing like forgetting a toothbrush, or a big thing like owning a low socio-economic house, or no house at all. And he'll just be waiting there like a ninja, ready to throw the judgmental 6 P's ninja star at the crucial moment. The second way he uses the 6 P's is for self-aggrandizing judgments about himself. When planning for the future, he smugly releases the 6 P's to convince himself that he could easily outplan any potential disaster. Packing for camping trips, preparing a beehive, paying bills far ahead of the due date. His decision to complete these tasks ahead of time are examples of implementing the 6 Ps in order to avoid certain disaster. Anyways, right now at this very moment I'm driving past another section of the 6 Ps. I'm driving past a lot of relatively poor houses that are probably the result of many poor decisions. Mouldy walls, broken cars, faded baby pools, you know the look. The unmown grass is the freshest evidence of whatever poor decisions have landed these houses here. The grass is bright, but it's messy and yearns to be cut. The area feels grey, but definitely not boring. Every yard is just a little bit different. Some yards have very little grass at all, just crooked slabs of concrete and dusty expanses of compacted dirt. Desperate islands of tufted green grass erupt from the ground. It scares me that my journey could end in an ordinary house like one of these. I bend my neck for just a moment and look over my shoulder. The sleeping bag, the pillow, and my suitcase, they all give me the thumbs up. I look back at the road and tap the dashboard. She's a good listener, old Daisy. She hears me say the words out loud. "You're a good old girl, aren't you, Daisy? No need for a mower with you." Chapter 4. Love Interest. I find myself shirtless and walking back out of the water. Just near the base of the sand dunes, there's 2 young women sunbaking in the late morning light. They're beside the beach stairs, so I snake a bit to their left. It could be a bit weird to head straight at them. One of them is wearing a beige bikini. She's tanned and she's pretty hot. They're definitely locals. I imagine that they're known and respected as the most city beach looking girls in this rather rural beach town. I snake back towards the stairs. As I get to the top, I look back for what can only be described as a perv. What I see instead is the curving snaky line in the sand that I walked around them. One of them is sitting up and looking at me. She smiles. I smile. And then I continue walking up the path. Damn, I should have walked straight at them. They're gorgeous. I cut my losses and walk on. Besides, I'm sure they'd be laying in exactly the same spot if I came back down the coast in 6 months. The dune grass on both sides of the sandy path is dry and tall as my head. It looks like the perfect spot for a snake. It actually reminds me of my parents' shitty navigation advice. You can't see the snake, but you can feel it there the whole way. Okay, this is the last time I mentioned my dad. I was 16 and I asked him for advice about a girl I liked. When he has no idea how to answer a question, he just tells you all about something that he does know about. In this case, he gave me all this info about queen bees and different social structures of different bee species. He then proceeded to get mad at me for not keeping up with the information. I'm pretty sure even he couldn't understand the metaphorical links he was trying to make, but he got mad that I couldn't. After all, I was the one that brought the issue to him. I should know more about it. I never told him that I didn't get the girl. He just would have been frustrated that I didn't take his advice. Anyways, fuck him and his birds and the bees talk. I'm not talking about him anymore on this trip, unless something shitty happens. I get to the end of the path, and there was indeed no snake in the grass, or none that I could see. As I walk on, I imagine an enormous snake heading straight for the women on the beach. I smile as I think about the sexual metaphor I just unwittingly created. It would be far too crude for my lecturers. Although it's a bit funny, my mind's eye still can't quite see it properly. Why? I continue to walk as I try to picture the snake on the beach. Why can't I picture it? The answer reveals itself to be quite simple. Snakes can't move in a straight line. My feet continue to thud softly into the sandy grass of the park. I cut straight through some play equipment stand and my body weight struggles from side to side like a snake. Isn't it interesting that for a human to walk, we must push ourselves laterally? This may be the biggest discovery I've made on this adventurous trip. Chapter 5. I find myself walking parallel to the beach down the main street of this small town. If it was more city-like, you'd probably call this street the Boulevard. The sun has not set, so I decide it's probably too late to get back on the road. I've snaked my way all through this town, and I've counted 2 of almost everything. 2 supermarkets, 2 petrol stations, 2 city beach babes, 2 places to get coffee, 1 temporary library, and 3 pubs. The 3 pubs all look like they've seen their own touch of real violence in the past 6 months. For some reason, I choose the one that looks like it would have the most people in it. I'm sure it's called The Middle Pub. so I guess that maybe makes it safer too. As I walk down the street, I touch my wallet that is wedged in my pocket. My $2,000 has already had bites taken out of it, with fuel and baked beans, but a treat on this second night is definitely in order. By treat, I mean a good pub feed, not baked beans and honey again. A man stumbles out of the middle pub. From this distance, it's hard to tell if he's a drunk or homeless, or both. His bad decisions might have started earlier today or 30 years ago, or both. He looks at me and seems just as wary. Skinny tanned skin, greasy hair, and he looks to be about 65 in drinking years. Wobbling in my direction and mouthing an unlit cigarette, he casts a disconnected stare at me. The staggering gains some consciousness as he walks taller and snakes to one side to avoid me. He slides past and I can smell that he's a drunk, not homeless. Under the many layers of yeasty pub aroma and BO, I can smell cologne. His shoes look homed too. I turn around and stare. "Hey, do you need a light?" He keeps walking, so I ask louder. "Excuse me, do you need a light?" He doesn't stop immediately, but he wobbles around in a C shape to face me. The cigarette is taken from his mouth. With his bony wrist, he points the butt towards me. I approach. As he sucks back, the ambers glow soft. He shuts his eyes. The sea breeze swiftly blows used smoke into town. "Thank you," he says with a voice not nearly as gravelly as I predicted it would be. It was actually smooth and aged like a doo-wop singer from the 50s. Like my dad, I'm not a smoker. But somehow the 6p's ensured I brought a lighter to this stare down. Chapter 6. Threat of more violence. I find myself on pause as I inspect the pub. Like an 80s computer game, its architecture is reduced to a rectangular box. Bricks on top, glass windows down the bottom. The texture of faded orange bricks is the background to the title screen. Central is the name of this level. Threat of more violence. The capital letters are bolted directly into the bricks above the front door. I stand back one step and admire the irony that the word central is not even in the centre. It's above the door, but the door is about a third in from the left. I take another step back, and suddenly, out of nowhere, I hear my lecturers. They echo their omniscient voices of criticism upon me. "Are you literally serious that you think you know how to use the word irony? How ironic. And what does a computer game metaphor have to do with a pub, or the story as a whole? And suddenly, really? Suddenly, I've stopped caring about reading your story." I shut their voices out and look even harder. There's bird shit on the very top bricks, and the bottom ones are darker. The sounds, they're not friendly. The sporadic laughter doesn't feel funny at all. It feels dangerous. The aluminium door of the pub is heavier than I expected. Through the glass, the patrons witness my emasculation as I shove the door a second time. My third attempt delivers me directly into the cool air of a place that I don't want to be. The patrons are young and old. The loudest group, actually the only group, are sitting in a circle near the centre of the room. There's about 7 of them, male and female, and they're a little bit older than me. I have that moment where I feel I should just stop, turn around and walk out. But I see a table to my left. It has high stools, beer coasters, and one lone menu. If that menu wasn't there to save me, I might have just left. I sit and pick up the menu. As long as I'm perusing this short list of predictable food items, I won't have to make eye contact with the group. I know they're looking at me, and I get the feeling that if a fight breaks out, I'd be about as useful as a drunken 65-year-old doo-wop singer. I peruse the list again, fully aware that I haven't read a single word. Squeak! The door opens. Fuck me, this guy is rougher and bigger. He must be the boss of this level. His pitted face catches my stare, and I feel he'd punch me if I looked away. Like a short snake, 2 of his friends walk single file behind him. He swaggers directly at me, and I instinctively look straight back at my menu. "What are you looking at, hippie?" His volume is in the category of loud conversational. He swerves close, but heads straight past me. Without ordering a drink, he turns around and puts his elbows on the bar. Before we make eye contact again, I look straight back at my menu. No matter how hard I look, I can't seem to find baked beans or honey on there. Another voice penetrates the space. "Leave the hippie alone. His volume is in the announcement category, but far less ominous. He sounds more like a tired and annoyed older brother. "I'm just having fun with our coastal traveller," the tough guy says. "Well, don't." Their short conversation allows me to have a look at who's speaking. He's sitting on a stool in the group, his back to me. Boyish, mousy blonde hair, collared shirt with tight blue and white checks. His slightly overweight frame sits in grubby jeans that hang over his work boots. The tough guy continues, "How about I do what the fuck I want? You fucking hippie. Faggot." "Just fuck off," the other guy says. The meaner tough guy looks back at me and smiles. I leave my menu alone for just a moment and look at him with 2% fuck off in my eyes. Tough guy's audience is shrinking, so he pontificates to the entire room. "These fucking hippies drifting up the coast, camping in their cars, ocean views, banging drums, not paying a fucking cent. Fucking dull bludgers. I'm fucking paying for that lifestyle." The nicer tough guy interrupts. "If you weren't such a cunt, they'd probably stop at your workshop and spend some money, you dickhead." "They can fuck off. I don't need their money. I'd just be earning my own money back anyways." He looks straight at me again and says it. "Fucking hippies." The more likeable tough guy steps up his aggression. "He's not even a hippie. He's got a collared shirt on, dickhead." He points at me and continues. "Shoes on, no jewellery, bad attitude. He's not a fucking hippie." "Fuck you, fuck off," the nicer one says. He walks through the group and out the other side towards the bar. Just fuck off. The tough guy puts his hands in the air and saves face. All right, rich boy. I don't want to spend money in your dad's pub anyway." As he walks past me, he raises his finger. "Fucking hippie." The door clangs shut. Another guy from the group, obviously drunker and far less serious, leans off his chair. "Come have a drink, you fucking hippie." I smile and look back at the menu. "You too fucking good for us." My legs walk me to the group. The guy that called me over has a naughty face with yellowy blue eyes, a pencil-thin moustache and olive skin. I guess he may be indigenous, but I'm not sure. His moustache widens across his face as he extends his thin hand. "They call me Black Trash, but you can call me Josh." The rest of the group quickly spit their names, but I don't hear them. Across the group from me are two attractive girls. They're the girls from the beach. They've got makeup on and are even prettier than I thought. She extends her hand to me and says with a smile, "My name is Truus." I could have been shocked by her thick European accent, but instead I accept that it adds another layer of beauty on top of her sparse makeup. I don't say a word. Josh breaks the silence. "Roos is Dutch, if you are wondering. Her name means rose." Before I respond, her friend pipes up, "Hi, I'm Emma." She has a polite and confident-sounding accent. Canadian, probably, but I don't really care. She doesn't extend her hand, but she smiles her large teeth at me. She says, "You're not from around here?" No, I'm not. I look at the rest of the group who are waiting eagerly to hear where I'm from. "Yeah, I'm from Bow Desert." Chapter 7. Pig and Friends. I find myself rising, falling, and turning my way through the conversation. It's one of those groups that exists in a time and space where you can say anything. Black Trash, who is usually referred to as Josh, offers something to the group. "Hey Roos," he says in a deep European accent, "did you know that roos, the jumpy ones, are one of the few mammals that don't move side to side to go forward?" The group silently watches on as Josh takes to the centre of the circle. The table was removed a few rounds ago, and all that is left is an empty space that is sort of like a stage. He mimes the walking movements of a kangaroo, dead straight across the middle of the circle, just to prove his point. For the next timeless minute, the jukebox plays noises and the whole group reenacts animals walking, trying to prove him wrong. Cow, emu, dog, goanna, all of them sway back and forward from left to right. The leader of the group, the tough guy, lays on the grubby floor and wiggles his body up and down like a caterpillar. "I'm a fucking worm, look at me. I'm not moving from side to side." Josh replies, "A worm is not a mammal." I place my hands together like I'm about to pray. I point them forward and move through all their bodies like a snake. Josh gives me a thumbs up. The older patrons of the bar quietly observe our circle growing into a sphere of cackling animals. Roos copies my snake movement and yells out, "I'm a fish." Josh replies, "There is no such thing as a fish." Another member announces, "I'm a whale. They don't move from side to side." Josh immediately replies, "A whale is a mammal, not a fish." As the group calms down and sits back at their stools, Josh says, "We could start a new Wiggles band. We could call ourselves Lateral Movement." The leader of the group, the one with the blue checkered shirt, gets the group back on track. "Who's up for another beer? Hippie, you right?" I tilt my empty glass and he swaggers off to the bar. I look at Josh and ask, "Why do they call you Black Trash?" "Because everyone has a nickname." He goes around the group, starting at his left. Wazza, Dozer, Pig, Spokey, Mary's at the bar, you're Toad for the time being. He slowly pauses as he gets to the two travellers. "And we have Emma, who is Thorny, and Ruse, who is Skippies." Mary passes me my beer. I nod my head and take a swig. "So are there any real hippies in this town?" I ask. Mary stands up abruptly, his stool clunking behind him. He rubs his wiry blonde hair viciously so it stands up too. He takes a step towards me and pulls his eyelids wide open. Quietly growling like Clint Eastwood, he whispers, "I'm the only fucking hippie in this town, punk." His face gets even closer as he reaches for his left chest pocket. Slowly, he removes an empty zippy bag. He holds it up like a dead fish swinging beside his head. I smile politely. Josh cracks the group back into laughter. Mary looks at the empty bag and immediately grabs for his right chest pocket. Eyelids wide open again, he moves closer and reveals a bag with 3.5 dried mushrooms. With his chunky work hands, he picks up my wrist and places the mushrooms in my palm. "Thanks, Mary. Appreciate it." He swigs his beer and sits down. As the laughter slowly dies, I take a chance at another question. "So why do they call you Mary?" Immediately he snaps back into a character. Standing with one hand on his chest and the other outstretched, he announces, "Rumour has it that my dear father is the mayor of this grand coastal district. But all who know what is true and what is real understand that it is I, Russell Duncan, who is the true mayor of this fine coastal destination." "So you're Mary because you're very mayor-like?" I ask. I look at Josh for approval and he says, "Well, Russ's dad is the mayor, and Mary is pretty mayor-like, but we call him Mary because he's like a female horse." Immediately I ask, "What is a female horse like?" Josh shrugs his shoulders and takes another sip of beer. Mary shrugs his shoulders and does the same. I sit up straighter and add, "I thought it might be because you're like Mary, the old lady in the Bible." He thuds his glass down and replies, "Nope, I ain't no virgin, brother." Pig, who hasn't said a single word, says something. Mary's just Mary. Chapter 8. Attenborough. Mary asks around the group for what people want to eat. I remember seeing some sort of hamburger on the menu, so I say, "Just a burger, thanks." I reach for my wallet and he gestures to put it away. He continues using his hands to communicate to the bartender the order of 8 people. I'm impressed. It takes him about 15 seconds and he's finished. The bartender throws his towel over his shoulder and disappears behind a wall of glasses. I ask Mary another question. "So is your dad really the mayor?" "No, he's really the owner of this pub." "So that's your dad behind the bar then?" "No, that's my uncle." "So your uncle owns the pub?" "No, not really. That's Uncle Den. He officially owns and runs it, but when Dad ran for mayor, it was a conflict of interest. So Uncle Den had to buy the pub off Mum and Dad, but mainly off Mum." "So your uncle and your dad are dodgy as fuck?" "No, the dodgy uncle, he just left. He's the one that doesn't own a lighter. I think you've already met him. He's dodgy, but he's all right." "So why did your dad decide to run for mayor?" "Well, there was this property deal happening, and your Uncle Dan and your dad are dodgy as fuck?" "No, Dad ran so the developers couldn't buy this block." "Oh, and your mum is the real owner of the pub?" "Correct. And you're not a real hippie?" "Correct. And neither are you." The sky above the sea town fell darker as we laughed more and more. Ruse's English is very average, but we all get the feeling that she's very intelligent. Periodically, the group falls silent and waits for her with great anticipation. We watch her face search her limited English vocabulary. When she gifts us with a short phrase or word, it shows she is following the conversation and at times well ahead of it. I get the feeling she is just as thoughtful and influential in her own land. I look at Mary. He's quietly holding hands with Ruse. I think that has probably been happening for a couple of days. I don't care. She's so beautiful, I just like being near her. Well, I do care, but I can't see a fight happening between me and Mary. I look at Josh. I really did misread this group. I thought Josh was the leader, but I now realise he's just insanely intelligent, well-spoken, well-read, a dance leader, and he's the smart guy of the group. Mary, he's the leader. He actually is very mayor-like, great communicator, confident, constantly serving, a good actor, extremely funny. The rest of the group match their nicknames to the degree that Pig is a pig. As the night moves along, the volume increases, but the energy eventually starts to wane. Mary stands up slowly, and the group quickly understands that the night is closing. They stand and start a farewell routine that looks well rehearsed. Ruse is standing close to Mary, but she looks straight at me. She takes 2 steps forward. Her face penetrates deep into my space as she leans towards me. Her eyes meet mine for a brief moment, and she pushes forward and kisses me on the cheek. Her recoil is instant. She smiles at me and then at the group. The group looks at Mary. Mary shakes my hand and says, "It was nice to meet you, brother." The energy is broken by Josh, who says in his finest Attenborough tone, "Competition for a mate is pursued by members of the animal kingdom in a plethora of unique ways. This city-dwelling youngster is very lucky that Mary is an alpha male of the human variety." The group permit Josh a transitory laugh. Pig shoves him towards the door. Chapter 8. Point of no return. I find myself leaving this beachside town on the same road that I came in. It doesn't feel like I'm backtracking. In fact, it feels like a completely new road. Tough Guy's garage sails by on my right. A part of me yearns for his story. What made him the way he is? Is his dad a mechanic? Who owns the garage? I tap Daisy on the dashboard and continue on down the road. It really does look different from this angle. I can no longer see the broken houses, dead car bodies and patchy grass. In fact, I can't see past the fences. Who cuts this grass on the side of the road? Is it a mayoral duty? Why are these fences all different? Some barbed wire, some wooden, and others brick. Can you fish from this small bridge? A small hand-painted sign flashes by my periphery. My attention is hooked on the barbed wire fence and I hit the skids. The gearbox whirs in reverse as I back up to the sign. There it is, painted in loving brown letters. Mary. I look up the slanted paddock and see her. A female horse. Caramel, strong, boyishly blonde hair and a cheeky smile. I wave goodbye. I find myself back on the highway, heading north. The car snakes back and forward across the road as I reminisce the lessons I've learnt. One of these lessons was just 5 minutes ago. I was almost at the end of Mary's road. Approaching the highway, I could have turned left to go south towards home. I've already gained so much, I thought, but my car turned right. I'm heading north. Daisy plays me sweet love songs through the radio and I rub my cheek. Oh, Ruse. Then with the radio off, I replay the kiss in my mind, just a few more times. Last night's sleep was disrupted by a mixture of 2 toxins. The alcohol was obvious. The poison of her kiss was far more subtle. The flowery kiss sent me to sleep with a giddy smile. By the 3rd time I woke up, I realised it had developed into an aching bite wound. The dreams inflicted on me stung with potential. Well, to be honest, I was probably inflicting the stories on myself, and that's what really kept me awake. As I reach to turn the radio back on, I can still feel the throbbing pain in my cheek. I really should have approached her on the beach when I had the chance. Me and Ruse could be sailing up the highway right now, giggling over the sound of contemporary Dutch pop songs. I could impart my navigation advice. We could find secluded areas, like those bushes right there, to have international relations. But we're not doing any of that. Josh's informative voice enters my head. A common misconception is that snakes are poisonous. In fact, they're not. The rule to remember is, if you bite it and you die, it's poison. But if it bites you and you die, that is indeed venom. Tash Sultana's song Jungle plays as I cruise up the highway with my slightly stinging hangover. Chapter 10.
Heading north, heading south. I find myself turning left off the highway, for no reason at all. It could be another Uluru I'm looking for, but here I am, driving. I snake up through a gap in the mountains and down the other side. As the road starts to flatten out, I take more notice of the land. I'm in a valley, surrounded by low mountains. It is a patchy, bright morning, and I consider that the water that falls on this side of the range must head south. It just looks like that. The road becomes slower. The land becomes prettier. I drive over a creek that is so beautiful that I slow down. The next creek is identical, and I drive even slower. All the water does flow south. The land flattens out more as I get to the next creek. The bright green grass comes right down to the edge. It's so pretty. The channel is about the width of my car, and the water flows slowly but surely south. The next creek is very similar, but something seems different. I slow down on the bridge until the car is almost stopped. The water is heading north. This is strange. My mind can't compute what my eyes are seeing. This is ridiculous. I should have just turned left onto the highway and gone home. I pull the car over and get out. Turning the car off brings an awkward serenity to the space, and it only makes me more confused. From high above, the whistle of an eagle accentuates the nothingness of my situation. My shoes crunch on the gravel. The green grass beside the road is short and inviting, so I lay down and look directly up at the eagle. He's circling almost directly above. I lay waiting with squinted eyes for the heavens to provide an answer to my conundrum. I know my problem isn't world-ending, but it would make my day if the answer, or any answer, actually fell from the sky and hit me in the head. Josh's voice drops straight into my mind. In his wiry, upbeat voice I hear the word, whistling kite. I'm not even sure I've heard that word before, so it's impressive that my subconscious mind came up with it. I sit up and get my phone from the car. A quick search should determine if a whistling kite is even a type of bird. No reception. Before laying back down, I take note of the valley that I seem to be right in the middle of. In the whole panorama, I can see just 3 isolated houses. The back of my head touches the earth again as I watch the eagle. Around he circles, and again. A few pumps of his wings and he whistles out another loop. A soft change of direction and he circles back the other way. It looks like he's just completed a figure 8. It must be about 3 circles he's done on the left side of the figure 8. Another change of direction and he goes for another loop. This time he changes direction on the outside of the circle. Before I realise that, he's just snaking through the sky. Turning left, turning right, wherever, whenever. I shut my eyes and immediately I see down from his perspective. I see the bridge, the car, my body. It looks like a murder scene. The road stretches on relatively straight in both directions. Snaking back and forward under the road is the creek. Under the road it travels south and circles around for about 800 metres, where it travels back under the road north. Then it circles for another 800 metres, where it changes direction and goes back under the road south, and so on. Like a snake slithering under the road, it turns left and right for kilometres. It makes me smile. As I study the bends and the road in more depth, it reminds me of a dollar sign. Just one straight road splitting the big S. That reminds me, I need to get petrol. I find myself driving further through the valley along the ranges. To check the weather, I lean forward in my seat and bend my neck. My chin almost touches the windscreen. The patchiness has given way to dark clouds, and the thought of rain makes me giddy with excitement. I know it's not even lunchtime, but the sky makes it feel like late afternoon. As I drive, I see my car from high above again, and I follow her on the windy road, through the hills. I tap Daisy on the dashboard and I know we're safe. Even if her small engine happened to fail, I know I could stay safe and dry in here for as long as I needed. The interior starts to feel oddly spacious. It's definitely not pretty, but it's home.
Chapter 11.
Crossing thresholds. I drive further into the day. Hills, farmland and skies all become thicker. The continual darkening of the mountains has made it hard to feel what time it is. I check my phone, and it's technically the afternoon. My anticipation grows quietly until the rain clashes with the earth. There's something exhilarating about driving in the rain, but eventually I'm forced to pull over. My visibility is completely whitened out. With the engine off, the roar is deafening. I feel like I'm in a submarine. There's nothing else I can really do, so I lean my seat back and soak in the sound. The windows start to fog. Another drip of water falls from the top of my door rubber. It should probably make me nervous, but it excites me. I pat Daisy and quietly invite the storm to give me all it's got before it leaves. As silence returns with light pattering on the roof, the call of peewee birds fills the air. I sit up, wind the window up, and squint like I've just woken up. The brightness almost brings a tear to my eye. The sky to the west is almost invisible as the afternoon sun illuminates the clouds. The air to my right, in the east, looks like it's been scrubbed clean. The trees vibrant, the grass burning green. I'm surrounded by white light bouncing off every wet silvery object. Just before the last few drops of rain fall, the frogs start chirping. Daisy pipes up too, and off we go. The tarmac glistening white and the wet road shearing a soundtrack to our journey. After 30 minutes of seeking out puddles that my dad would avoid, we approach a dip in the road, and she instinctively slows down. The water isn't gushing across, it's more like an overgrown puddle. We get through easily. The next dip in the road flows with gushing water in the opposite direction. We come to a complete stop. Before considering the option of turning around, I've already started calculating the pass. The week before I left, Dad used pen to mark Daisy's bumper. Go in the water above this, and your journey will stop. If the water stays under, you're just a boy playing in the water. I try to ignore his voice as I visualise the pen mark. With a squint of my eye, I measure the depth. Seems like it should be good, probably below my knees. It's only about 3 car lengths across. I imagine myself taking my thongs off and test walking the gap. As my imaginary feet emerge on the other side, I turn back to see Daisy. She looks lonely. Instead, I sit in the dry safety of Daisy. Instead, I sit in her dry safety and gently press my thong against the pedal. Before I know it, my front wheels enter the flow. Steady speed, straight line. Halfway across, I look out my side window. It definitely looks like it's definitely over the floorboards. I imagine the water rushing the engine bay, and it starts to feel a lot deeper than my knees. Daisy labours through the heaviness. I'm positive that it doesn't help, but I hold my breath anyway. The bonnet slowly points up, and I drive out easily. The water that we pull from the creek makes a satisfying flush sound on the tarmac. I don't know why, but I pull over immediately. The farmers around here have probably done crossings like that 1,000 times, but it feels pretty special to me. I get out and I walk around to see how far the water came up. It went well over the pen line, but my level of pride is way over.
Chapter 12. Chapter 13. Chapter 14. Chapter 15. Chapter 16. Chapter 17. Chapter 18. Chapter 19. Chapter 20. Chapter 21.